Commander Jake Morrison rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the screens in front of him. The Earth Deep Space Monitoring Station had been quiet for weeks. Nothing but the usual background noise from distant stars and the hum of space itself. He was getting ready to end his shift when something strange happened. A sound cut through the silence. It was unlike anything Jake had ever heard before. The computers started beeping and flashing red lights everywhere. Numbers and symbols filled the screen so fast that Jake could barely keep up. "What the hell is that?" Jake said out loud, even though he was alone in the room. He pressed the emergency button that called the entire team to the station. Within minutes, people were running into the room. Dr. Lisa Grant was the first to arrive. She was the best language expert on Earth. And if anyone could figure out what this signal meant, it would be her. "Jake, what's going on?" Lisa asked as she sat down at her computer. "Something big just came through the deep space array. Look at this." Jake pointed to the main screen where waves of data kept flowing. Lisa's eyes went wide. "This isn't random noise. This is organized. This is a message." More people arrived. Chief Engineer Beth Williams came running in with her coffee still in her hand. Dr. Kevin Hayes, the station's science leader, was right behind her. Soon the whole night shift was crowded around the computers. "Where is it coming from?" Beth asked. Jake checked the tracking data. "Kepler 442 system. That's about 1,200 light-years away." "That's impossible," Kevin said. "Nothing we know about can send signals that far and still be this clear." Lisa was already working on her translation programs. "The signal has two parts. The first part is mathematical. Look at this pattern." She put the numbers on the big screen. "These are prime numbers, but they're arranged in a specific way. It's like they're trying to prove they're intelligent." "And the second part?" Jake asked. Lisa frowned. "That's harder. It's not like any language we know. But the pattern suggests it's some kind of emotional communication." For the next 2 days, the team worked without stopping. They took turns sleeping on the floor and eating sandwiches at their desks. The signal kept repeating every 6 hours, exactly the same each time. On the second night, Lisa made a breakthrough. She was so excited she almost fell out of her chair. "I got it. I got part of it," she shouted. Everyone gathered around her screen. Lisa's hands were shaking as she typed. The mathematical part was a key. It told us how to decode the rest. The emotional part. "It's a message, and it's not good." Jake leaned closer. "What does it say?" Lisa read from her screen. "Ancient enemy returns. World's dying. Billions perish. Help us, please, anyone." The room went completely silent. Nobody moved for a long moment. "Are you sure?" Kevin asked quietly. Lisa nodded. "There's more." They included coordinates and some basic information about themselves. They call themselves the Villani. They're running from something they call the Devourers. Jake felt a chill go down his spine. The Devourers? According to this, they're some kind of machine intelligence that eats entire planets. The Villani have been running from them for generations, but they're running out of places to hide. Beth set down her coffee cup. "How do we know this is real? Maybe it's just some kind of test or joke." Dr. Hayes was studying the technical data. The energy required to send this signal across 1,200 light-years would be enormous. This isn't a joke. Whoever sent this has technology far beyond anything we have. Jake made a decision. "I'm calling the president." 2 hours later, Jake stood in the White House Situation Room. President Helen Carter sat at the head of a long table surrounded by generals, scientists, and advisors. The room was tense. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," President Carter said. "We received a distress call from aliens asking for help against other aliens who eat planets." "Yes, Madam President," Jake replied. "And according to the data we've analyzed, these devourers are expanding in our direction. General Paul Martinez, the head of Earth's military, spoke up. This could be a trap. We don't know anything about these Villani. They could be lying to get us to reveal ourselves. Or, said Dr. Hayes, this could be humanity's first chance to make contact with a peaceful alien species and prove we're ready to join the galactic community. The debate went on for hours. Some people wanted to ignore the signal and hope the aliens never found Earth. Others wanted to send a message back but not offer help. A few thought Earth should prepare for war. President Carter listened to everyone. Finally, she made her decision. We're going to help them, she said. But we're going to do it our way. If these devourers are really heading toward Earth, we need to know what we're dealing with. And if there are innocent people out there being killed, we have a moral duty to help. General Martinez nodded. If we're doing this, we need to send our best. The U.S. Defiance is our most advanced ship. But who's going to command it? Jake stepped forward. I volunteer, Madam President. This started with me. I want to see it through. Commander Morrison, President Carter said, you're a communications expert, not a military officer. With respect, Madam President, this mission is going to need both. Someone who can talk to the aliens and someone who can fight if necessary. The President thought for a moment. Very well. But you won't go alone. I'm assigning you a full crew of specialists. Over the next week, Jake watched as the best people on Earth gathered for the mission. Captain Tony Rodriguez would lead the military team. He was a tough Marine who had seen combat in 3 different wars. Chief Engineer Beth Williams would handle the technical side. She knew the Defiance better than anyone. Dr. Kevin Hayes would head the science team and help analyze whatever they found. Dr. Lisa Grant insisted on coming too. If we're going to talk to aliens, you need someone who understands communication, she said. The day before they left, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, looking down at Earth. It was beautiful and peaceful. He wondered if he would ever see it again. Lisa joined him at the window. Having second thoughts? No, Jake said. But I keep thinking about that message. Help us, please. Anyone. How desperate do you have to be to send a signal into empty space, hoping someone will hear you? Maybe that's exactly why we need to go, Lisa said. Maybe being the kind of people who answer that call is what makes us human. Jake nodded. I just hope we're ready for whatever we find out there. The Villani have been fighting these devourers for generations and losing, Lisa said. What makes us think we can do better? Jake looked at the stars. Because we're from Earth, we've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know how to survive when everything is trying to kill us. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. The next morning, the U.S. Defiance left Earth's solar system. It was humanity's first journey to another star, and they were going to war. As they traveled through space, Jake thought about the signal they had received. Somewhere out there, people were dying while waiting for help that might never come. But they were wrong about one thing. Help was coming. Earth had heard their call, and Earth was sending its children to answer. The journey to Kepler 442 would take 3 months. Jake used that time to prepare his crew for whatever they might find. He had no idea that this mission would change not just humanity's future, but the future of the entire galaxy. The Devourers had ruled through fear for centuries. They were about to learn that there was something in the universe more dangerous than machines that ate planets. They were about to meet humans from a death world, who had learned that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become the thing your enemies fear most. 3 months later, the U.S. Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, staring at the main screen in horror. What he saw was nothing like the beautiful star system they had expected. The outer planets were gone. Not destroyed, but stripped down to their metal cores. Massive chunks of rock and ice floated in space where once there had been worlds. The debris field stretched for millions of miles, creating a graveyard of dead planets. "My God," whispered Dr. Lisa Grant as she joined Jake at the viewing screen. "What happened here?" Chief Engineer Beth Williams was checking her instruments. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from those debris fields. Whatever did this use technology we can't even imagine." Captain Tony Rodriguez came onto the bridge, carrying his rifle. He had been training his Marines for weeks, but seeing this destruction made him realize they might not be ready for what they were facing. "Sir, my sensors are picking up life signs," said Lieutenant Sam Parker from the navigation station. "There's a small moon orbiting the gas giant in the inner system. Someone's alive down there." Jake made his decision quickly. "Take us in, but keep our weapons ready. We don't know what we're going to find." As they got closer to the moon, they could see structures on the surface. They looked like cities, but they were built in a way that was completely different from anything on Earth. The buildings were tall and curved, almost like they had grown instead of being built. "Commander," Lisa said, excitement in her voice, "I'm receiving a transmission from the surface. Put it through." A voice came through the speakers. It was speaking in the same language they had decoded from the original distress signal. Lisa worked quickly to translate it. "They're asking us to identify ourselves," Lisa said. "They want to know if we're the ones who responded to their call for help." Jake took a deep breath. This was humanity's first real conversation with an alien species. "Tell them we're from Earth. Tell them we came because we heard their message." Lisa transmitted the response. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the voice came back, and this time it sounded different, hopeful. "They're inviting us to land," Lisa said. "They're giving us coordinates for a landing site." An hour later, Jake stepped off the shuttle onto the surface of an alien world for the first time in human history. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, and the air smelled strange but breathable. Captain Rodriguez and his Marines formed a protective circle around the landing party. A group of aliens approached them slowly. Jake's first thought was that they looked fragile. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, but thin and graceful. Their skin was pale and almost see-through, and their eyes were large and dark. They moved like dancers, every step careful and elegant. The alien in front stopped a few feet away and spoke. Lisa translated quickly. "He says his name is Counselor Zethka. He's the leader of the survivors in this system." Jake stepped forward and tried to look peaceful. "Tell him I'm Commander Jake Morrison from Earth. Tell him we came to help." When Lisa translated this, something amazing happened. The alien's large eyes filled with what could only be tears. He fell to his knees and began speaking rapidly. "What's he saying?" Jake asked. Lisa's voice was shaking. "He's thanking us. He says they've been sending distress signals to thousands of star systems for over 200 years. We're the first ones to ever respond." Zethka stood up and gestured for them to follow him. He led them into one of the curved buildings. Inside, it was beautiful but sad. The walls showed pictures of worlds that no longer existed. Hundreds of aliens sat in groups, all looking lost and hopeless. Through Lisa's translation, Zethka began to tell them the story of his people. The Villani had once lived on dozens of worlds throughout this part of the galaxy. They were peaceful people who loved art and science and growing things. They had never fought wars because they had never needed to. Then the Devourers came. Zethka showed them recordings of what had happened to the Villani homeworld. Jake watched in sick fascination as huge ships, each one the size of a city, descended from space. The ships looked like a cross between machines and insects, with long metal arms that reached down to the planet's surface. "They don't just destroy," Zethka explained through Lisa. "They consume. They take everything. The rocks, the water, the air, even the people." "The people?" Jake asked. Ituka's expression became even sadder. The Devourers are not just machines. They take living beings and make them part of their collective mind. Billions of our people are still alive, but they're trapped inside the Devourer network, forced to help destroy other worlds. Dr. Kevin Hayes had been studying the technical data the Villani shared with them. "Commander, you need to see this. The Devourers aren't just random destroyers. They're expanding in a specific pattern, taking resources to build more ships. And according to these charts, they're heading toward our part of the galaxy." Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. "How long do we have?" "At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach Earth sector in about 50 years, Kevin said. Captain Rodriguez had been listening to everything with growing anger. "So we stop them here. How do we fight these things?" Zefka shook his head sadly. "You cannot fight them. We tried for generations. Our weapons cannot hurt their ships. Their technology adapts to whatever we use against them. Each time we attack, they learn and become stronger." "Then how are you still alive?" Rodriguez asked. "We run, we hide. When they come to a system, we escape if we can. Most of the time, we cannot." Zefka gestured to the aliens around them. "These are all that remain of 47 worlds. Billions of our people are gone." Jake looked around at the survivors. They were all thin and tired, like people who had been running for too long. Many of them were injured. He could see that. They had given up hope long ago. "Why didn't you fight back harder?" Rodriguez asked. Jake could hear the frustration in the Marine's voice. Zefka looked confused by the question. "We are not a violent people. Our weapons are designed to defend, not to attack. We build things, we don't destroy them." Rodriguez turned to Jake. "Sir, with respect, I think I see the problem. These people never learned how to fight a real war." Jake was beginning to understand. The Villani were everything humans were not. They were peaceful, gentle, and cooperative. They had never needed to become killers to survive. But the Devourers were the opposite. They were destruction made into living machines. "Counselor Zefka," Jake said, "show us everything you know about the Devourers. Their ships, their weapons, their tactics, everything." For the next several hours, the Villani shared all their data with the humans. Jake and his team studied the information carefully. The picture that emerged was terrifying. The Devourers had thousands of ships. They could rebuild faster than anyone could destroy them. They learned from every battle and adapted their strategies. But Rodriguez noticed something the Villani had missed. "Look at these battle patterns," he said, pointing to the tactical displays. "The Devourers always attack the same way. They surround a planet, land their harvester ships, and strip everything away. They never change their basic strategy." "Because it always works," Jake said. "Exactly. But look at this." Rodriguez highlighted several battles. "Every time someone tries to fight them in space, the Devourers win. But what if we don't fight them in space?" Kevin was studying the technical data about Devourer ships. "These things are big and powerful, but they're not very maneuverable. And look at this. Their collective intelligence makes them strong, but it also makes them predictable." Jake was starting to see what his team was thinking. The Villani tried to fight them like civilized people fighting a civilized war, but the Devourers aren't civilized. "Neither are we," Rodriguez said grimly. "Sir, we come from a world where everything tries to kill everything else. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to be brutal when we have to be." Lisa looked worried. "Jake, what are you thinking?" Jake looked at the Villani survivors around them. These people had suffered enough. They deserved a chance to live in peace. But that would never happen as long as the Devourers existed. "I'm thinking it's time someone taught these machines what happens when they mess with the Death World." At that moment, alarms began going off throughout the Villani base. Zefka ran to a communication panel and spoke rapidly with someone on the other end. "What's happening?" Jake asked. Z ETH-Ka turned to them with fear in his large eyes. 3 Devourer scout ships have just entered the system. They will be here in 2 days. Rodriguez grinned, but it wasn't a happy expression. Good. I was hoping we'd get a chance to field test some ideas. Jake looked at his team. They were scared, but they were ready. These might be humanity's first steps into a galactic war, but they weren't going to back down. Counselor Zethka, Jake said, you're about to see how Earth fights. 2 days later, the 3 Devourer scout ships entered the Kepler 442 system. Commander Jake Morrison watched them approach on the main screen of the U-East Defiance. Each ship was massive, easily the size of a small city. They moved slowly through space like giant metal insects hunting for prey. They're heading straight for the moon, reported Lieutenant Sam Parker, just like the Villani said they would. Captain Tony Rodriguez stood next to Jake, studying the enemy ships. They look tough, but they're moving in a straight line. No evasive maneuvers, no scout patterns. They think they're invincible. Dr. Kevin Hayes was analyzing the ship's energy signatures. Their shields are incredibly strong, but they're putting all their power into forward momentum. They're not expecting any real resistance. That's their first mistake, Jake said. Beth, are the modifications ready? Chief Engineer Beth Williams nodded from her station. All weapon systems have been upgraded. The plasma cannons are running at 150% normal power. The torpedo tubes are loaded with our special surprises. Jake had spent the last 2 days planning humanity's first space battle with alien technology. The Villani had shared everything they knew about Devourer ships, but they had always tried to fight them using conventional tactics. Jake had other ideas. Lisa, open a channel to Counselor Zethka on the surface. Dr. Lisa Grant worked her controls. A moment later, the Villani leader's voice came through the speakers. Commander Morrison, you must flee now, Zethka said through the translation system. Your ship cannot stand against 3 Devourer vessels. We're not running, Jake replied. Keep your people in the shelters and trust us. Jake cut the connection and turned to his crew. Everyone remember the plan. We're not trying to fight them like a normal space battle. We're going to hit them like pirates, like guerrilla fighters. We use their size and predictability against them. The Devourer ships were now close enough that Jake could see details on their hulls. They were covered with strange symbols and had long mechanical arms folded against their sides. These were the harvester arms that would strip a planet bare. They're trying to communicate with us, Lisa reported. Put it through. A cold, emotionless voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect English, which was somehow more frightening than if it had been alien. Unknown vessel, you will surrender immediately. Your biological components will be integrated into our collective. Resistance is futile, Rodriguez laughed. Did they just threaten to turn us into robots? Sounds like it, Jake said. Lisa, send them our response. Lisa looked at Jake questioningly. Jake smiled grimly. Tell them that Earth doesn't surrender. The moment Lisa transmitted the message, the Devourer ships opened fire. Beams of energy lanced through space toward the Defiance. But Jake was ready. Execute evasive pattern Alpha, all power to engines. The Defiance suddenly accelerated at a speed that surprised the Devourer ships. Instead of trying to fight them head-on, Jake flew his ship into the debris field left over from the destroyed planets. Sir, we're using the debris as cover, Parker reported. Exactly. Beth launched the first surprise. Beth activated a special system she had built during the trip to the alien system. Hidden throughout the debris field were small devices that looked like pieces of rock and metal. But they weren't debris at all. Nuclear mines armed and ready, Beth announced. Jake watched as the first Devourer ship flew into the debris field, chasing the Defiance. The ship's massive bulk made it hard to maneuver between the floating chunks of dead planets. Now, Jake ordered. Beth triggered the mines. A dozen nuclear explosions lit up space around the Devourer ship. The blasts weren't powerful enough to destroy the ship, but they damaged its shields and confused its sensors. Direct hit on Target 1, Rodriguez reported. Their shields are down to 60%. But the Devourer ship was already adapting. Its hull began to change, growing thicker armor plating where the mines had hit. They're learning, Kevin warned. That trick won't work twice. It doesn't have to, Jake said. Rodriguez launched the boarding pods. This was the part of the plan that had made the Villani think the humans were insane. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer ships from the outside, Jake planned to attack them from the inside. 6 small pods shot out from the Defiance toward the damaged Devourer ship. Each pod contained 4 Marines equipped with the most advanced weapons Earth could build. The pods were designed to drill through ship hulls and deliver their passengers directly into enemy corridors. Boarding parties away, Rodriguez announced. Team leaders report in. One by one, the squad leaders confirmed they had penetrated the Devourer ship. What they found inside was unlike anything they had trained for. "This is Sergeant Mike Davis," came a voice over the radio. "Sir, this place is like a nightmare. The walls are alive. They're covered with faces." Jake felt sick. "Faces? Yes, sir. They look like people, but they're part of the ship. They're watching us, but they can't move or speak." Jake realized what they were seeing. These were the assimilated beings that Zethke had told them about. Billions of people from dozens of worlds, all trapped inside the Devourer collective. "Stay focused on the mission," Rodriguez ordered his teams. "Find the central processing core and plant the charges." While the Marines fought inside the first ship, Jake was dealing with the other 2 Devourer vessels. They had learned from watching. Their companion get damaged and were now moving more carefully. "Sir, targets 2 and 3 are spreading out," Parker reported. "They're trying to surround us." Jake had expected this. "Beth, time for the second surprise." Beth had been working on another modification during their journey. She had connected the ship's life support systems to the main weapon batteries. It was incredibly dangerous, but it would give them firepower beyond anything the Devourers expected. "Rerouting life support power to plasma cannons," Beth announced. "All crew, switch to emergency oxygen." The Defiance's main guns began to glow, with energy far beyond their normal capacity. When Jake fired, the plasma beams were so powerful they punched through the second Devourer ship shields like they weren't even there. "Target 2 is heavily damaged," Kevin reported. "But we're running out of air." Jake made a quick decision. "All power back to life support. Prepare for ramming speed." "Sir?" Parker looked confused. "You heard me. We're going to ram the 3rd ship." This was something no civilized species would ever consider. Deliberately. Crashing your ship into an enemy vessel was seen as primitive and wasteful. But humans had been ramming enemy ships since the age of wooden boats. The Defiance accelerated toward the 3rd Devourer ship at maximum speed. At the last second, Jake changed course slightly so they would hit the enemy ship at an angle instead of head-on. The collision was tremendous. Both ships spun through space, locked together by twisted metal. But the Defiance had been built to survive impacts, while the Devourer ship had been built to harvest planets, not fight desperate enemies. "Damage report," Jake called out as he pulled himself back into his chair. "Hull breach on Deck 3, but we're still intact," Beth reported. "The Devourer ship isn't so lucky. Their main reactor is overloading." At that moment, Rodriguez's voice came over the radio. "Commander, we've planted charges in the first ship's central core. The Marines are ready for extraction." "Get them out of there now," Jake ordered. The boarding pods detached from the first Devourer ship just as the charges exploded. The ship's central processing core was destroyed, and with it, the collective intelligence that controlled the vessel. But something unexpected happened. As the first ship died, the faces in its walls began to scream. Not in pain, but in joy. For the first time in centuries, the assimilated beings were free from the collective mind. "My God," Lisa whispered, "we didn't just destroy the ship. We freed the people inside it." The third Devourer ship was also dying, its reactor overloading from the ramming attack. But as it exploded, Jake saw something that made his blood run cold. Before it died, the ship transmitted a signal into deep space. "Kevin, tell me you got a lock on that transmission," Jake said. Kevin worked frantically at his instruments. "I did, sir. But you're not going to like where it went." "Where?" "Straight toward the core of Devourer space. They just told their entire fleet that something new is fighting back." Jake looked at the wreckage of the 3 scout ships floating around them. They had won their first battle, but he knew it was just the beginning. "Lisa, open a channel to the Villani on the surface." When Zethka's voice came through, it was filled with amazement. "Commander Morrison, how did you do it?" "No one has ever defeated Devourer ships before. We fought dirty," Jake replied. "But Counselor, we need to talk." "That signal they sent means more ships are coming. A lot more ships." Rodriguez joined Jake at the command station. "Sir, my Marines are reporting something interesting from the ship they boarded. The assimilated beings weren't just trapped. They were fighting the collective from the inside, trying to break free." Jake nodded. This gave him an idea, but it was dangerous beyond anything they had tried so far. "Get me a secure channel to Earth," Jake ordered. "We need to tell them what we learned here, and we need reinforcements." As the Defiance limped toward the Villani moon for repairs, Jake stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the main Devourer fleet was preparing to respond to this new threat. 6 weeks after the first battle, the Kepler 442 system was completely different. Ships from across the galaxy had arrived after hearing about humanity's victory against the Devourers. The small moon where the Villani survivors lived was now crowded with representatives from dozens of alien species. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the main meeting hall, looking at the strangest collection of beings he had ever seen. There were the insect-like Kithara, who spoke by clicking their mandibles together. The Murhai looked like walking jellyfish and had to wear special suits filled with water. The Kronari were living rocks who communicated by changing the colors of their crystal formations. All of them had one thing in common. They were survivors. The Devourers had destroyed their worlds, and they had been running and hiding for generations. Ambassador Ryan Clark had arrived from Earth 3 days ago with a fleet of ships. The UE's Vengeance, UE's Retribution, and UE's Justice now orbited the moon alongside the repaired Defiance. The names alone made some of the peaceful alien species nervous. "We appreciate Earth's willingness to fight," said Speaker Vexhai of the Murhai, her translated voice sounding like bubbles popping. "But can 3 human ships really stand against the full Devourer fleet?" Jake looked around the room at the worried faces. "No, they can't, but we're not talking about 3 ships. We're talking about building an alliance." A Kithara warrior named Kliktar made angry sounds. "Alliances have been tried before. The Devourers always win. They learn our tactics and adapt." "That's because you've been fighting them the wrong way," said Captain Tony Rodriguez. He stood up and activated a holographic display. "Look at every major battle between your species and the Devourers. You always tried to fight them fairly." The hologram showed battle after battle. In each one, the defending species had used proper military formations, followed rules of war, and tried to minimize casualties. In each one, they had lost. "Humans don't fight fair," Rodriguez continued. "We fight to win." Dr. Lisa Grant was working with alien scientists to solve the communication problems. With dozens of species trying to coordinate, translation was becoming a nightmare. "We need a common language for military operations," Lisa said to Jake. "The time delay in translations could get people killed." Jake nodded. "What do you suggest?" We teach them all basic English, just enough for combat coordination. It'll be faster than trying to program translators for every possible combination of languages. While Lisa worked on communications, Chief Engineer Beth Williams was having the time of her life. She was in a huge workshop with alien engineers, combining human technology with innovations from across the galaxy. The Chronari have energy shields that are incredibly efficient, Beth explained to Jake during one of his visits to the workshop. The Cathara make armor that can repair itself. The Murhai have developed weapons that work underwater, in space, and in any atmosphere. Can we combine all of this? Jake asked. Already working on it. We're designing a new class of ship specifically for fighting Devourers. Fast, tough, and unpredictable. The first prototype was almost ready. It looked like no ship anyone had ever built before. Parts of it were smooth like Villani designs, other parts were angular like human warships. Some sections seemed to flow, like Murhai technology, while others were crystalline like Chronari constructions. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kevin Hayes had been studying the captured data from the Devourer ships they had destroyed. What he found changed everything. Jake, you need to see this, Kevin said excitedly as he burst into the command center. I've been analyzing the Devourer collective intelligence, and I found something incredible. Jake looked at the data on Kevin's screen. It was complex, but one thing stood out. Is that what I think it is? Jake asked. Yes, the collective has a central processing core. Not just for individual ships, but for their entire network. It's located in their home system. Jake felt his heart racing. You're saying if we could destroy that core, the entire Devourer network would collapse. Every ship, every collective node, everything would shut down. Captain Rodriguez joined them. That's great news, but their home system must be the most heavily defended place in the galaxy. Kevin nodded. According to this data, there are over 2,000 Devourer ships protecting their core worlds. Then we better start building a really big fleet, Jake said. Over the next month, the Alliance grew larger every day. More survivor species arrived, bringing with them whatever ships and weapons they had managed to save. The Villani provided detailed star charts. The Cathara brought warrior traditions that were thousands of years old. The Murhai shared stealth technology that could hide entire fleets. But the biggest surprise came when the Chronari offered something no one expected. We wish to share the great memory, announced Elder Stoneheart, the Chronari leader. His crystal body pulsed with different colors as he spoke. What's the great memory? Jake asked. Before the Devourers came to our worlds, we recorded the minds of our greatest warriors in crystal matrices. They have been waiting for centuries to fight again. Jake didn't understand at first. Then Elder Stoneheart showed him a crystal the size of a person. This contains the combat experience of General Rockfist, who never lost a battle in 300 years of war. We can transfer this knowledge directly into your warriors' minds. Jake looked at Rodriguez. Tony, you interested in learning how to fight like an alien general? Rodriguez grinned. Sir, I'm interested in learning how to fight like every alien general. The knowledge transfer process was strange and painful, but it worked. Human Marines emerged from the crystal chambers with the combat experience of dozens of alien warrior traditions. They knew how to fight in zero gravity, like the Murhai, how to use natural camouflage like the Villani, and how to coordinate attacks like Cathara swarms. But the aliens were learning from humans too. Jake watched as Villani scientists learned to think about weapons as tools of protection rather than destruction. Cathara warriors discovered that sometimes the best strategy was to break all the rules. Murhai captains found that aggressive tactics could save more lives than defensive ones. The Alliance's first real test came when long-range scouts detected a massive Devourer fleet approaching the system. This wasn't 3 scout ships. This was a harvesting fleet of 20 ships, each one larger than the scouts they had fought before. Estimated time to arrival is 6 days, reported Lieutenant Sam Parker. Jake called an emergency meeting of all the Alliance leaders. The meeting hall was packed with aliens of every description. "This is it," Jake announced. "Our first real battle as an alliance. 20 Devourer ships against everything we can put in space." Some of the alien leaders looked frightened. They had never fought odds like this before. "What if we lose?" asked Counselor ZETH-K. Jake looked around the room. "Then we make sure they remember that we fought." "But we're not going to lose." Ambassador Clark stood up. "Earth has authorized me to share our most advanced weapons with the Alliance. Nuclear weapons, plasma cannons, and something we call quantum torpedoes." The alien species had never seen weapons like these before. Many of them were horrified by the destructive power. "These weapons could destroy entire planets," whispered Speaker Vex High. "Yes, they could," Jake said. "But we're not going to use them on planets. We're going to use them on the things that eat planets." The battle plan was complex. The Alliance fleet would be divided into 5 groups, each using different tactics. The humans would lead aggressive frontal attacks. The Cathara would coordinate swarm tactics. The Murhai would use stealth to attack from unexpected angles. The Kronari would provide heavy firepower with their crystal cannons. The Villani would coordinate everything using their advanced communication systems. As the Devourer fleet got closer, Jake stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked out at the Alliance armada. There were over 60 ships from a dozen different species. It was the largest fleet ever assembled to fight the Devourers. "Sir," Rodriguez said, "my Marines are ready. The alien warriors are ready. Everyone's scared, but they're ready to fight." Jake nodded. "Lisa, open a channel to all Alliance ships." When the channel opened, Jake spoke to the largest gathering of species in galactic history. "Today we're not fighting as humans or Villani or Cathara or any other single species. Today we're fighting as one people against an enemy that wants to destroy everything we care about. The Devourers think they're invincible. They're about to learn they're wrong." The Alliance fleet moved into battle formation as the Devourer ships entered the system. This would be the largest space battle in galactic history. As the first shots were fired, Jake realized that win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. The age of running and hiding was over. The age of fighting back had begun. The battle for Kepler 442 lasted 18 hours. When it was over, 12 Devourer ships were destroyed and the rest were retreating. But Commander Jake Morrison knew this was just the beginning. The real war was about to start. "We hurt them," said Captain Tony Rodriguez as he looked at the battle reports. "But they'll be back with more ships." Jake nodded. "Which is why we're not waiting for them to come to us." "Kevin, do you still have the location of their central core?" Dr. Kevin Hayes pulled up his data. "Yes, but Jake, it's in the heart of their territory. We'd have to fight through hundreds of systems to get there." "Not if we're smart about it," Jake said. He turned to the Alliance leaders who had gathered on the Defiance. "We're going to do something the Devourers won't expect. We're going to attack their home directly." Elder Stoneheart's crystal body flashed red with alarm. "That is suicide. Their home system has 2,000 ships." "Exactly," Jake said. "They have so many ships there because they never expected anyone to be crazy enough to attack it. But what if we could get a small force past their defenses?" Ambassador Ryan Clark understood immediately. "A stealth mission. Get in, destroy the central core, get out." Jake looked around the room. Not just a stealth mission. A sacrifice mission. "Most of us probably won't come back." The room went silent. These species had been running from the Devourers for centuries. The idea of deliberately flying into their strongest fortress was terrifying. Counselor Zethka was the first to speak. "If there is even a small chance of ending this war forever, we must try." One by one, the other leaders agreed. Even though they were scared, they knew this might be their only chance to save the galaxy. Planning the mission took weeks. The Alliance fleet would split into two groups. The main force would attack Devourer positions throughout the galaxy, making as much noise as possible. This would draw ships away from the home system and make the Devourers think the Alliance was trying to fight a normal war. Meanwhile, a small strike force would use more high stealth technology to sneak into the home system. Their job was to reach the central core and plant a quantum virus that Dr. Hayes had developed. The virus would spread through the Devourer network and shut down their collective intelligence permanently. Jake would lead the strike force personally. Rodriguez and his Marines would handle ground operations. Chief Engineer Beth Williams would keep their ships running. Dr. Lisa Grant would coordinate communications with the main fleet. "Sir," said Lieutenant Sam Parker, "I've been studying the route to the Devourer home system. There are at least 50 heavily defended systems between here and there." "Then we don't go through them," Jake said. "We go around them." The strike force consisted of 10 ships, each one equipped with the most advanced stealth technology the Alliance could build. They would take a long route through empty space, avoiding all the major systems where Devourer fleets were stationed. Journey to the Devourer home system took 2 months. During that time, Jake's team practiced every part of their mission over and over. They knew they would only get one chance. As they got closer to their target, they began to see the true scale of Devourer civilization. Entire star systems had been turned into factories. Planets were stripped down to their cores and rebuilt as massive shipyards. The space around each system was filled with mechanical structures that stretched for millions of miles. "My God," whispered Beth as she looked at the sensor readings. "They've turned half the galaxy into a machine." Jake felt sick looking at what had once been beautiful star systems. Billions of worlds had been consumed to build this empire of destruction. "That's why we have to stop them," Jake said. "If we don't, they'll do this to the entire galaxy." The home system itself was the most terrifying thing any of them had ever seen. The central star was surrounded by a sphere of metal that captured all its energy. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation around massive space stations. At the center of it all was a planet-sized computer that pulsed with the light of billions of trapped minds. "That's it," Kevin said, pointing to the massive structure. "That's the central core. Every Devourer ship in the galaxy is connected to that thing." Jake studied the defenses. There were so many ships that they looked like a metal cloud around the core. Getting through them would be impossible for a large fleet, but Jake wasn't planning to fight his way through. "Remember the plan," Jake told his team. "We go in fast and quiet. Plant the virus. Get out. No heroics." But as their ships approached the outer edge of the system, something went wrong. A patrol of Devourer ships detected them, despite their stealth systems. "We're discovered," Parker reported. "Enemy ships are moving to intercept." Jake made a quick decision. "All ships, attack pattern Alpha. We're fighting our way in." The battle that followed was unlike anything they had faced before. The strike force was outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but they had advantages the Devourers didn't expect. Human aggression, combined with alien technology, created tactics that the collective intelligence couldn't predict. Beth overloaded their weapon systems, creating firepower that punched through Devourer shields. Rodriguez led boarding parties that attacked enemy ships from the inside while they were still fighting in space. The alien crews used every trick their species had, learned over thousands of years of warfare, but the real heroes were the volunteers who stayed behind to buy time for the others. Ship after ship sacrificed itself to keep the Devourers busy while Jake's team fought toward the central core. "This is Captain Stone Fist of the Chronari ship Unyielding," came a voice over the radio. "We're surrounded, but we're taking as many of them with us as we can. Tell our people we fought with honor." Jake watched on his screen as the Chronari ship exploded, taking 3 Devourer vessels with it. Similar sacrifices were happening all around them. Finally, only 3 ships from the strike force were left, including the Defiance. They had fought through the outer defenses and were approaching the central core. "Jake," Kevin said urgently, "I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout the system. They're preparing to overload their entire network. If they do that, every assimilated mind in the galaxy will die." Jake realized what the Devourers were planning. Rather than let the Alliance free their prisoners, they would kill everyone. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Maybe 10 minutes. Kevin replied. Jake looked at his remaining crew. They were all injured and exhausted, but they were still fighting. "Beth, can you get us to the core?" "I can get us there, but I can't get us back out," Beth said. "The ship won't survive another fight." Jake made his decision. "Then we don't come back. We finish this." The Defiance and the 2 remaining Alliance ships crashed through the final defenses around the central core. As they approached the massive structure, Jake could see the faces of billions of trapped beings in its walls. They were all looking at him with hope in their eyes. "Kevin, deploy the virus." "Do it now." Kevin activated the quantum virus and transmitted it directly into the core's main processing center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire structure began to pulse with different colors. "It's working," Kevin shouted. "The virus is spreading through their network." All across the galaxy, Devourer ships suddenly stopped moving. The collective intelligence that had controlled them for centuries was breaking apart. On millions of worlds, assimilated beings began to remember who they used to be. The central core began to crack and crumble. The energy that had powered the Devourer Empire for so long was finally being released. Jake felt the Defiance shaking apart around him. They had succeeded, but they wouldn't live to see the results. "Lisa, get a message to the Alliance fleet," Jake ordered. "Tell them it's over. Tell them the galaxy is free." As the core exploded and took the Defiance with it, Jake's last thought was of Earth. Somewhere among the stars, his home world was safe. The children of the Death World had kept their promise. 6 months later, Admiral Morrison Memorial Station orbited the ruins of the Devourer home system. Ships from hundreds of species came there to remember the heroes who had ended the war. The galaxy was rebuilding. Former Devourer worlds were being turned back into places where life could grow. The Alliance had become a permanent organization, dedicated to protecting all species from threats like the DEVOURERS. And on the edge of the Memorial Station, a new signal had been detected. Another species calling for help from somewhere beyond the galaxy. The message was simple. "Ancient enemy approaches. Worlds in danger. Help us, please." The Alliance Council met to discuss the new threat. Earth's representative stood up and spoke. The words that had become the Alliance motto. "We hear you. Help is coming." That's what Deathworlders do. The story of humanity's first contact with the galaxy had ended. But the story of the galaxy's protectors was just beginning.